Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and if you've ever heard the song, "You're a Mean One, Mr. Pinch Yourself," before you go any further, because we've got the director of the new Christmas horror parody that's based on that green monster who shall not be named. It's called The Mean One, and not only did it make its way into theaters, but all the hype it's getting is enough to make every indie horror lover's heart grow, well, at least 2 to 3 sizes. Please welcome to the podcast the director of The Mean One, Stephen LaMorte.
Hello, I'm here. It's me.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing so great. How are you guys doing?
We are good. We are good. And, obviously, we're going to talk a ton about The Mean One. But before we dive into that, we'd love to know just about, your background. Like, where are you from originally and how'd you get involved in filmmaking?
Well, I'm from the East Coast, so I live in Los Angeles now, but I'm originally from New York City. Shout out to the mean streets of Shaolin, Staten Island, New York.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's right. Me and the Wu-Tang hanging out. But I've always loved telling stories and kind of entertaining and making people laugh. And ever since I was like 9 years old, making little stop motion movies with my little analog video camera. I showed my film to some friends and family and made them laugh. And they said, "Hey, let's watch it again." And I was hooked. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to do this forever. And I've been making movies ever since.
Wow. So did you go to school for film and all of that? Like the progression like that after you knew, obviously at a young age, you wanted to do that?
I did. Well, it started with, making my own movies, obviously getting, whatever family and friends I could harangue into being in my strange little films to do them. And then once I got to high school, I got to make like little sketches and parodies, for like the school TV station. I was never really into the news. I didn't want to report on the football games. I wanted to do a ripoff of, whatever trashy MTV show was on at the time. And I actually went to high school with the Fuzz on the Lens guys, who are the producers behind Terrifier. So we used to make movies together way back in the day. There's all these old photos of us in our all boys school uniform, like holding little video cameras. And, we're still doing it to this day, which is crazy.
That is so cool. I didn't know. What a great connection, which we'll get to later.
Was it a VHS camera?
High 8 is what we were shooting.
Okay, I just aged myself.
There's still VHS cameras when I was doing it. It's one after.
Okay.
So you're a little younger than us.
Just a little bit.
Tim was using what is before VHS?
It was like
Super 8.
Yeah, with like Charlie Chaplin was in my film.
Tim was hanging out with Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, he's so funny.
Right, just cranking, just turning the crank, it's like try to capture everything.
He was like, Tim, great. It's not in color.
He's like, I don't speak, Tim.
Yeah. And I said, that's fine.
Stop
Stop
giving me lines. Anyway, well, okay, so we read some kind of cool facts about you on the always trusty IMDb that we had to bring up. First off, we saw that you, and tell us if these are correct, that you sang in multiple bands in New York City. Can you tell us about that? Like, what kind of music?
Well, my deep dark, I used to sing in a wedding band for sure. So I was in different wedding bands and stuff. Yeah. So I would do I would MC, and then I would do all the classic kind of wedding stuff.
So we're talking to Adam Sandler?
So, but with maybe slightly better hair. Yeah. But it was always fun. It was a good time. And then when I was in college, that was like my first job, was like MCing and DJing and stuff. You're an only child. You want to be the center of attention any way you can get it. And then when I was in college, I was in an all male a cappella group. That's my deep, dark, sordid past.
I love a cappella.
I was in Madrigal. I tell that to everyone.
Tim was whatever that is.
Tenor. I was terrible.
Our shtick was that because we were all male, we were like the bro a cappella group or whatever. So we would only do Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and we would do like Britney Spears and all that kind of just like really fun poppy stuff. So our concerts were just like get hammered and come come see an a cappella group. And so we would do the lights and big obnoxious sound, and we would always do one dance number that was terrible and would always get a laugh out of people. And yes, that's
what was the name. What was the name of the group? Because I love a cappella.
Absolutely not. No.
Please.
No way.
Do you still know the steps?
Some of them, yeah. It's like cheerleader choreography. It's
I'm gonna guess. Was it like? It's always can you at least tell? Was it a pun, as all a cappella names are?
No, because
Oh.
we're new.
Matt, you're
we're
not
new-
gonna get it.
No, I wouldn't confirm it, so that's fine. If you earn it, maybe I'll tell you offline. But that's my dark
Okay,
past
because
must be buried.
I love a cappella group names.
We also read that you've directed and produced music videos. What kind of artist have you worked with?
Honestly, I've worked with all kinds of artists, big artists, up and coming artists. I mean, the probably the biggest ones I did the Script, who were they're an Irish band.
I know the Script.
I worked with Flo Rida. I worked with goodness, I haven't done a music video in a while. I've worked with like Amy Bell and Belle Biv DeVoe. I've done all kinds of like different artists. I haven't done a music video in a minute, but there was one other. I did Modest Yahoo, one of his big ones, which was cool. Yeah, this was mostly in New York when I was, on the come. I have to update the IMDb.
But that's a lot. Really... I mean, from wedding singing to a cappella to music videos, what a varied background.
Is a lot of, I don't want to call it lying, but pitching. I mean, I was directing music videos for Sony before I was like old enough to drink. And so I would go and I would like shoot a video with the band and they'd be like, oh, we're going to the after, we just wrapped this. This was super fun. We're going to the after party. And I'm like, not old enough to get into the club. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's, I got to go work on the edit. So I'm going to just,
they didn't help you with a fake ID, or you didn't want them to know you weren't old enough?
No, I didn't want them to know. They hired a 19-year-old college student to direct a music video, come on now. So I was like, they're like, that dude works really hard. He never comes out with us. And I'm like, yep, that's what it is. I definitely don't have finals tomorrow.
That's hilarious. And so again, looking through your resume, you've worked on a ton of projects over the last decade or so, like we were talking about. And so, not counting the mean one, what project that you've worked on throughout your career would you say you're most proud of?
Ooh, that I'm most proud of.
And I know that's a tough question, and in no way does that mean other projects
aren't. Mean one.
I know.
No, that's cool.
But yeah, one that you're most proud of.
I'm really, really, honestly, really, really proud of my next movie that's coming out, which is called Bury Me Twice. It's a zombie film noir mashup about like a hard-boiled detective in the 1940s who's trying to solve the case of what started the zombie apocalypse. So it's a mashup of film noir and zombie movies, but it's got like a rip-roaring adventure feel, and it's all green screen. So the whole movie is like Sin City, and I animated every single shot myself.
Oh my gosh! And it's noir. Is it in black and white?
Yeah, it's mostly black and white, but then there's some color elements to it. I animated every single frame, all 2,600 shots of myself over the course of 5 years.
And you directed it also. That's
I directed it, and I directed it, and I shot some of it, and because this was 2016 or 2017. I said, I want to make like a show reel for Marvel, and and I know how to shoot green screen and stuff. So I said, if I wanted to make a big, obnoxious, Indiana Jones, the Mummy style adventure film, we don't have the resources to go to all these places. If I want to crash a bus or blow a rooftop up, like it's going to have to be all green screen. So I made this live action comic book, and this little thing called The Pandemic happened, which gave me a little more time to animate it. And 5 years later, it's done. It'll be out next year.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. We'll definitely look out for that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Naps during the pandemic.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because so many people found like either different hobbies, or they like move forward on different projects they had. And then some people just gained 10 or 20 pounds like Tim and I.
Hey, think for yourself. I only 19 pounds.
There, look, it was 2 years is a long time. I think I did both. I did them both. When you're doing animation, everything, it's like you're finishing 2 seconds at a time. And, my poor fiance would be like, oh man, she's like, man, you were up there all day. It's like, I know, I got a lot of work done. Look, and I'd push a button and it's like one gunshot with a building in the background. And I'm like, crazy, right? And she's like, okay, keep at it, buddy.
She's like, hopefully this pandemic lasts 5 years.
12 hours.
But yeah, no, I know how I haven't worked in animation, but I know how painstakingly detailed you have to be. So congratulations for, that's a huge accomplishment. And we'll definitely look out for it. The most important thing that we read on IMDb about you, this is the most important thing, and I had to ask you about it. Is it true that you and Rocky Balboa share the same nickname of the Italian Stallion?
My friends got to stop messing with my IMDb. Yeah, there. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I think my New York accent was a little thicker, and it does still come out when I've had a few beers. And so yeah, the first producer I ever worked with used to call me the Italian Stallion, and I guess he's got the ability to edit my IMDb, because there you go.
Wow.
I say keep it. I mean, like I love things like that. Like finding my favorite thing to do about anybody that we interview is not just like look at their resume, but like look at like the trivia or the Wikipedia stuff. And a lot of things is false. Like we'll ask people and they'll be like,
They're like,
that's
what's
not
that?
true at all. Or we'll even find things on their IMDb. They're like, no, I didn't make that. Or
Yeah, like what are you talking about?
You should probably take that off. But that nickname is
Actually,
great.
it's funny. I would keep it. And growing up, were you a fan of horror films? Did any have an impact on you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm not a huge like gory, like really, really intense like horror movie kind of guy. I'm much more into like fun stuff like Gremlins or like, Brendan Fraser, Mummy. I always loved, anything that's got like cool creatures and is not just like scary, but it's also really, really fun. Because like Terminator is technically a horror movie, and I love Terminator. I mean, Terminator 2 is fantastic, but like Alien, big creature and spectacle and taking you on a journey somewhere. Like, I'm the Star Wars fan of horror movies. So
did you see Ghoulies?
Ghoulies? I have
Do you
not
remember
seen
Ghoulies?
It's
Okay.
okay
No.
because I hadn't even seen it either.
I was just curious because as soon as you said Gremlins, I also think about Ghoulies. I'm old.
It's like creature horror from the
I'm
80s.
writing it down. Oh, I mean, creature features are they're just the best. And that's one of the reasons why I love like werewolf movies. I think it's like, and I have a werewolf movie in the chamber, and I'm like, man, I would love to do a werewolf movie, because you can't do it without really seeing it. And so you have to get creative. I mean, the practical effects on the thing are like insane. And too many times I feel like now people are really into practical effects, and people are willing to take the time to build something and do like trick gags and stuff. But it's it's an art form that kind of fell out of fashion a little bit, because, that doesn't gel with modern production speeds and budgets and stuff. And man, I just love seeing like a dude in a suit and rubber and KY jelly. Like, oh, it's my favorite. Maybe that's
American Werewolf in
personal
London?
life.
I was going to say
Yeah,
Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf?
No,
Yeah.
actually, a great horror movie if you haven't seen from the 80s, a werewolf. My favorite is Silver Bullet, based off the Stephen King story with Corey Haim,
Gary Busey.
Yeah.
Give me a
Gary
count.
Busey. Hell yeah.
It's fun. It's like it's not it's just a good. I don't know. It's
I
good
prefer
movie.
Christina Ricci and Cursed.
Okay. Well, that makes one of us. Anyway, so moving on to the mean one. Like, first off, we just want to congratulate you on this film, because getting it into theaters, because we know that that's not an easy feat as an indie filmmaker. It's really, really fucking cool that you got it into theaters, and we had a lot of fun watching this movie. And it's funny because I was even thinking to myself as we were watching it, like, why hadn't someone thought of doing this before? I mean, like the mean one, he's always been such a scary looking guy. It's just like perfect for this type of approach. So I know you get this in every interview that you've done, but we have to ask for our listeners, where did the idea for doing this horror parody come from?
Well, I mean, I've always felt like kids' art and kids' drawings was like inherently creepy and weird. And, there's something about the designs of the author, because they're not twisted conceptually, but literally it's like twists and turns, and kind of that heavy ink line always kind of freaked me out. And I think you can see it in the sketch that Cindy does of the mean one, with the big smile, because the earlier sketches were way nicer. And I'm like, no. We need to make this really weird and silly if we want to get a laugh out of people. And so, the idea kind of just drifted through my head, because at one point I had gone to like a Halloween Horror Nights. And, you're walking through the area, it's night and there's smoke, and you're walking through the area where, all of the author's characters kind of live, and there's no scare actors over there. There's nothing in there. It was just like a transition. We're just walking through, and it was scary as hell. I'm like, oh my God, this is like grotesque. Horrifying. Like, this could be really scary. If you had this giant green monster that lived in the mountains, hated Christmas, like this thing would not be singing songs. This thing would use its teeth. It'd be biting, it'd be slashing, it'd be killing people. And what if we could make a movie out of that? So that's kind of where the idea came from.
No, it's a great, I mean, it is. It like inherently, and I'm trying to think of when I first saw the source material, like as a kid, and if I was afraid of the green monster, because I feel like, again, I can't remember that far back, but I can remember that now, like when I see it on screen as an adult, it is a really creepy looking monster.
Absolutely. And did you work on horror films before?
Yeah. Had any of the things you had worked on been related to horror before The Mean One?
Nothing that I had directed. Some of the other films that I got to work on. You're starting in Los Angeles, you're able to kind of. There's lots of low budget horror movies looking for people who are looking to kind of break out. So I definitely done a few, and it's really kind of interesting to see the difference between someone who loves horror and is like, oh, this is just like Friday the 13th, or oh, this is just like Psycho, and someone who's like just a producer trying to squeeze money out of a profitable genre. And I feel like you can always tell, because when you have like an artsy director who's like, oh, I'm going to try horror because that's a thing. It's like, yeah, but do you love the genre? Are you like really into it? Because you can just tell when someone's trying to like sell more pies versus someone who like really loves the genre and is, kind of making a horror movie for horror people.
Yeah, no, and you're totally right. Because it's like when it's a fan making the movie, they know exactly what fans want. Versus if you're just like, hey, this is a low budget thing I can do. Let's just throw some blood in. They don't get it, or they don't get what fans like us, appreciate.
I like the tropes.
Yeah, exactly. You got to stick with the tropes.
Yeah, I mean, the tropes are, part of what make it fun, right? I mean, there's something really silly about when someone's like, let's split up, and you're like, okay, here we go,
running and then falling.
Yeah. Right. And then they fall. Yeah. I mean, it's just tripped over what? Like, why did you, they always fall. But there's also a certain element too of, because there's so many different kinds of horror, you could, if you only watched haunted house movies, you would never need to see another horror movie again, because there's a million of those, right? There's a million werewolf movies. There's a million vampire movies. There's things that are gory. There's, the difference between Friday the 13th and Halloween, even though they're, the one's kind of a knockoff of the other, they couldn't be more different, right? So
I love Friday the 13th.
This is our big argument, or we're rivals on. I'm a big Halloween fan, and he's a big Friday the 13th fan. So it's constantly at
well, so we have to ask you, which one do you prefer, Halloween or Friday 13th?
There's only one right answer.
I hate to break it to you. It's Halloween. I'm sorry.
Well, because he has taste.
It's whatever.
No, the funny thing is we joke about this, but I love Friday the 13th and he loves Halloween. It's just that I have been like the biggest Halloween fan since I was 11, and Tim probably since
9. I beat you. I win.
In 1912, right? Yeah.
Right. Back
Charlie
before
Chaplin
talkies were a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Before talkies were a thing. So the character of the mean one obviously is played by David Howard Thornton, who's achieved a ton of success in horror, especially lately because of his performance as Art the Clown in the Terrifier movies. And, we've actually been lucky enough to have him on Happy Horror Time twice now, which is cool. We had him on a year and a half ago, talk Terrifier, and then recently with Samantha Scafidi to talk Terrifier 2. Great guy. Love having him on the show. So we were just wondering, how did you get David on board, and did you always have him in mind for the role?
Well, the movie came together really, really fast. Okay. I've had this idea for years, but we only really started development on the film in December of last year. Right.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. So where I had a shoot canceled. I had 2 or 3 days open, and I said, keep the crew. Let's finally make this, this mean one thing that I've wanted to do. And, we made it like a 2-minute fake trailer. And so that was it. The movie is done. All the jokes are in there. We're over. And one thing led to another, and we ended up realizing we're going to make this into a movie. And so we, worked on the script from January up until right before we shot in May. So May of this year is when we were shooting the movie that's out now.
Jeez.
Okay. That's why I have many more grays now than when I started. But when we,
I don't see them.
Thank you.
Well, listen, since this is an audio podcast, that we'll take a screenshot with you, but I don't see one gray in.
I have grays for both of you.
Yeah,
it's a good look.
Sorry to interrupt. It's
a good look. No, that's great. I'm gonna someday. I hope to be where you're at with my grays.
Flattery.
So we knew. That's right. Please go see the movie. So we knew that. As the script was evolving, that if we were the one of the mean one to be scary, he couldn't talk. And I've been aware of Terrifier for years, since the beginning, because, I know some of the producers, and, I've been following Terrifier since before it popped up on Netflix, which I think is really when it kind of spilled over into the regular populace for people. And, whenever I shoot in New York, I shoot with those guys, and they were showing me, so they're like, hey, you want to see something really cool? And they're showing me some BTS from Terrifier 2. Before it had come out, they're like, look, we blew up this lady's head. Look, we did this. Look, we did that. And it sparked the idea in me. I'm like, I got to go back and watch Terrifier 1, because I bet you Art the Clown would be awesome as the mean one. And my fiance and I sat down and we watched it, and we're like, oh, this is definitely the guy. And thankfully, he responded to the source material. He loved the kind of the script and the concept that we had. And he's like, he doesn't live in Los Angeles, so we're gonna find a way. We're gonna make this work. And I'm gonna be the mean one. And was so awesome working with him. It's a blast.
I mean, he had nothing but great things to say about not just the film, but the experience. When we talked with him just a few weeks ago, you could just see on his social media how passionate he is about it, because, he could easily keep riding the Terrifier wave, but he's totally switched his social media to really focusing on the mean one. And such a brilliant casting decision. I mean, like when we've talked with him, it's like, he can do impressions. He's tall. He is such great. He's so expressive, and what a perfect idea for this character. So yes, great thing. And by the way, side note, and I'm sure that you, Stephen, probably already know this, but this is for listeners, because Tim and I we're such nerds. We love random like horror connections. So we have like a random 6 degrees of David Howard Thornton for you. You ready for this?
Okay.
We found out that one of the co-writers of The Mean One, Finn Kobler, was an actor in All Hallows Eve Part 2. And All Hallows Eve Part 1 was the first feature film that included the character of Art the Clown before Terrifier and before David Howard Thornton even played that role. Small horror world.
Whoa, That is crazy.
Wait, you didn't know that?
We did not know that. No.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, duh. Like I know that, but
obviously, I had no idea.
Okay,
Whoa.
so I thought that was the crazy thing, because I saw we were looking up the writers. Who are they? Brothers, I guess. The writers?
No, they're a father and son team.
What? That is the most awesome thing I've ever heard. I want to write a horror movie with my dad.
It's crazy.
Wait, is Finn the dad or the son?
Finn is the son. Yeah. So okay. Flip and his wife and writing partner Cindy used to write all of the Disney sequels. They did Pocahontas 2, they did Lion King 2, they did an episode of Star Trek. Like they did a lot of like a big, animated and name brand stuff before transitioning to live action. And Flip's wife Cindy was pregnant with Finn when The Lion King 2 came out, and this is their first project they got to write together.
Oh my God, that is so cool. Yeah, we saw it, and I'm not sure. I've seen All Hallows Eve 2, but I saw it a while ago, and but he had a role in one of the segments. I was like, wait, All Hallows Eve is where Terrifier or Art the Clown
where Art started,
before David Howard Thornton played the role and before Terrifier. So what a crazy 6-degree connection. So cool. I'm kind of happy you didn't know that.
I did not. I'm going to text Finn now and be like, hey man, first of all, remember me. Second of all,
new phone.
Secondly, how's your dad doing?
Second round, tell me about your dad. Yeah.
What was the process like to transform David into the mean one?
Well, he says it's mean one time, and then he kind of gets big and expands. No, it's what started as probably 4 hours of makeup, and by the end, Tatiana Blucho was able to get it down to I think just over 2 hours, which is for a special effects makeup driven film crazy for it to be that fast. But there's a bodysuit and kind of stuffing, 2 different kinds of claws that are better for stunts versus claws that are better for close-ups and slashing and stuff. There's a wig, there's neck hair, there's of course the funny little hat, distressed jacket, and then several prosthetic pieces that go onto the face and then get blended with makeup and airbrushing. But his teeth, we actually started with prosthetic teeth, and it was really hard for him to emote with them, and you can't have the mean one without that devilish smile. And he's so expressive that we had to do a couple of makeup tests and really experiment with a design that would allow him to emote, right? Because if you put a mask, you don't get David and put a mask on him and he can't, he's just turning his head like Batman. I mean, he needs to be able to play the role. So she hand painted his teeth to give him that evil kind of a smile, and made sure to use individual applications that were applied in a way where he could smile, he could twist, he could turn. And, that's all him. There's no, aside from like some color changing eye stuff that we do when the mean one gets mad, that's all him. Like, he's really expressing. We did some experiments to see like, oh, maybe we'll extend his smile so he'll look more mischievous, and we didn't need it because it's all him. He's the man.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, like, and also I feel like you have the advantage of he's also used to having to sit for hours to have makeup and prosthetics put on him because of Art the Cloud. Yeah,
do not torture David Howard Thornton. You're not going to get the answer, because that man can sit through anything. And it's not even just the experience of being made up. It's also like being in it all day. David has a stunt double that we use for like flips and rolls and, a couple of the more dangerous stuff, where if David gets hurt, like the movie stops right there, right? In a low budget production, we shot for 14 days. The movie had to be done in 6 months. We cannot have our star get injured. So we had a stunt double, and, periodically we put on a variation of the makeup on his face, and he was like, oh my God, I can't breathe and I can't see. And I'm like, yeah, it's not just about having it applied for 12 hours. He's sitting, in this thing attached to his face, and he's such a good sport about it. But it is funny to see him, the mean one, hanging out, having to get fed food with a tiny fork and drink through a little straw because, he can't really function. It's
that is, yeah, oh my God,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and that is dedication to his roles, definitely. I would say. So the tone of your film, it's kind of, I felt like it was kind of like almost like a heartfelt holiday story that happens to include brutal horror, violence, and killings. And I'm assuming that's exactly what you were going for, considering the source material. So I was just wanted to ask, how difficult was it to kind of toe the line between lighthearted holiday cheer and straight up horror? And did you ever consider going just like fully dark and somber?
It was trickier. It was tricky, right? Because, when we're in the writing stage, we knew that not only for it to be a parody, but based on what we were going for, that it had to be funny, right? Like if you take the material too seriously, I think if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And we knew that I wanted to make something that was a Christmas movie, not a horror movie that takes place at Christmas. Hallmark horror is kind of the name we've been like throwing around.
I love that. I love it.
And so Hallmark, if you're out there and you're interested in something different.
I mean, you would think they after doing thousands of the same thing, maybe be open to something a little different, but I'll let those pieces fall into place for you.
We'll let it see where it goes. But I mean, it was definitely, we knew, especially when we did we did our first table read over Zoom, and it went well and we felt good and we tinkered with the script. But then we did another table read that was in person, where we had the whole cast at one big table, and we had a small audience that was there, and the reaction was totally different. And to hear them kind of hear people laughing and reacting to the jokes, those are the moments that really worked super well. So we said, okay, let's kind of up the comedy. And when we're shooting, thankfully the actors are super talented, and when we're shooting, trying to keep the tone, to make sure that the tone was right, was definitely a tricky balance. And everyone knew, like, look, this is borderline melodrama. If you lean into it and you're like, this guy killed my father, and then we see this cartoon of a green monster with a big smile, like that's funny, right? So there's many moments where we're shooting these very serious scenes, and they come out of the cave and they're scared and they're like, how did we do? And I'm like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I love it. Perfect. We got it. And they're like, I'm pouring my heart out over here. I'm like, I know, that's what makes it funny. Move on, Yeah. So yeah, it was tricky, but it's definitely what we set out to do. And I know there's some people who, were asking me like, oh man, we're going to see the mean one slashing throats. And I'm like, well, no, not necessarily. It's not that kind of movie. We wanted to make like a fun holiday romp, more than we wanted to make something that was shocking or really, really scary. And I love when I hear that, people are going to see it with friends and they're laughing and, they're like, oh, I'm going to get high and see it again. I'm like, great, go do that. And other people are like, oh, my mom loved it. I'm like, that's actually a pretty cool endorsement. I'm all for it. We want to make people smile.
I mean, some of the horror movies I think we both love are just fun. Like, and when I say fun, it's like, you know, there's so many different types of horror movies, ones that truly like affect you afterward and you're truly terrified and scared, ones that, you know, you have fun with and just want to watch over and over. And well, I don't want to go through every type of horror movie, but
please do.
yeah, please. Okay, and then there's
so give us the list.
What I was going to say is that yes, I probably didn't walk out of the theater of The Mean One, you know, checking the backseat of my car for The Mean One, but I checked out like with a smile on my face, having fun and thinking like it was a fun movie to watch. I could definitely watch it again. And that, I think, is the type of horror movie that, yeah, people want to continue watching and show their friends. I mean, what do you think?
I totally agree.
Yeah, like, so, and I'm glad that that's kind of the tone you went, because yeah, I think if you had gone too serious and dark, first of all, I guess it would be hard to go too serious with a big green monster, but like, you know, because of the source material and the holidays, it kind of just made it was something to laugh at. You can laugh while people are getting killed,
right?
know?
And that's all we really want in life.
Yeah.
There you go. That was my goal, you know, and especially even like with some of the gore gags, you know, I know some people are like, oh, the blood, some of the blood is really cartoony, and we're like, yeah, that's the point. It's supposed to make you laugh, like it's supposed to make you chuckle. If we really put some poor woman into a blender, like in theory, as she's getting chewed up by this thing, like we should see body parts flying out and chunks of gristle. Like that would be a really hard to watch. Like this would be an unspeakable sequence. And, you know, I just think it wouldn't be as funny, like in terms of what we're trying to make, you know, because clearly, because you see The Mean One, like our team's got the skills to do pretty much anything. But we, you know, towing the line of like, what do we want this broken leg to look like? And they brought me this leg prosthetic that had like tendons and stuff hanging. And they're like, yeah, and he'll just put his knee in the back and his foot will kind of dangle. And I was like, absolutely not. Oh my God, this is a Christmas movie. What are you doing? No.
I thought you were going to pull up a leg. Did you?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, we were watching it. We were watching Stephen, and he like moved his arm down like he had the leg.
I was like, we're going to see it.
We're like, oh my God, the prosthetic, it's here.
No, it's just a little extra coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that was actually our next question, because exactly what you kind of just answered, because, you know, a lot of the killings in The Mean One they're pretty creative and brutal, but like just to draw a comparison between like a film like Terrifier, your movie doesn't show it in grotesque detail. And in fact, you know, we did notice that a lot of like when the blood splatters were coming up, they seemed to be CGI. And I felt like I was going to ask, was that done on purpose to go along with the more lighthearted tone? And it sounds like that's exactly why you did something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some gags that we think work because they're, you know, a little bit more realistic. And the makeup and special effects on Terrifier is insane and unbelievable, and oh my God, just jaw-dropping. But we knew that if we were trying to make something fun that maybe had a little bit of a broader appeal and was more silly, like lean into the silliness. I mean, we're also like a tiny budgeted film. I mean, we don't even have Terrifier 2 money. We got Terrifier 1 money. We made the movie in 6 months. And so we said, let's lean into our strengths. Let's go really over the top, really silly and goofy and cartoony. And I know that if you're like a diehard horror fan, to see cartoony animated blood, you know, makes it look like we don't know what we're doing, or that it's like some, you know, like just bad filmmaking. But like, if you're laughing, then we did our job, you know, and there's lots of tools we can use at our disposal to do that. So,
and especially if you had a reason for doing it that way, like, you know what I mean? It's like, again, when I saw it, I was like, it wasn't to me like, oh, they didn't have the budget for real effects. To me, it was like, oh, because it's lighthearted and holiday-ish, you know, like I'm not going to see body parts all around.
The base material was cartoon, so it's cartoony.
Yeah. And that's how I got it. So I wasn't, when we were watching like the more CGI blood stuff, it wasn't like, oh, what a cop out. It was more like, oh, this is an actual, you know, educational choice for the film.
And the final girl of the movie, of course, is Cindy, who's played by Crystal Martin. What was she like to work with? And did she do a lot of her own fighting scenes?
Crystal Martin is a very experienced stunt performer. So she does all of her own stunts, all of her own fights. She's like a total badass. She's totally proficient in short sword, broadsword, guns, like fighting, boxing. She gets set on fire 10 times a week at Universal Studios. Like, she is so hardcore. Oh, wow. And she rolls up on her motorcycle with her leather jacket and she's like, all right, I'm ready to shoot my scene. I'm like, Crystal, what are you doing? Like, put those guns down. Like, she's wearing a tank top and just like bursting out of her outfits. She's awesome. She's super great and a really accomplished actress, but this is her first movie as like the lead of a whole feature. And so, she worked super hard. She, had done so much research and homework, and, probably the hardest thing for her was, because she's such a experienced and proficient stunt performer, was in the early parts of the movie where she has to not know how to use a gun or not know how to throw a punch. Like our stunt coordinator, Terrence, I'm like, Terrence, can you show her how to not throw a punch, please? Because she's like, she's like holding the gun, like, with her finger off the trigger and the safety off. And she's like, okay, so I have to shoot it, right? I'm like, no, you have to make it look like you don't know how to shoot it. Like, what? Give me the gun. I'll show you how to not hold it. How about that? So that was like the hardest challenge for her, was to pretend like she didn't know what she was doing, with all the badass stuff she knows how to do.
That's so funny, because it usually, I would think, would be the opposite.
She had to unlearn.
Yeah, like most people that would be in roles like these, they would have to really, like, we hear about people having to go through like tons of training just to like shoot a gun once in a movie. But so that's really cool that she's a stunt actor and can do all that herself. That must have made at least that part easier. But obviously, the other part of pretending that she didn't know, different.
It's just like a bizarre thing to be like, Crystal, you look too awesome throwing that punch. We're only 20 minutes into the movie. Do it again. Like it really was, oh, okay, sorry. It took she had to unlearn some of what she knew. And she got it and it was totally fine. But it's just like what a weird problem to have is, you have like, has anyone ever told The Rock, like, oh, try to look weak in this shot, like Tom Cruise.
Tim, you told him when they had lunch the other day.
Yeah. I was like, hey, Rock.
Well, that's like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, like watching him in the new, in Maverick, watching him like not be able to pay a bar tab. I'm like, Tom, buddy, you've been rich for how long at this? Is this ever anything you have ever experienced? Or like, oh, I don't have enough cash to pay for something. Like, come on now.
He's probably used to people buying him drinks.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
trying to think of like how many times Tom Cruise has actually had to pull out money to pay for something.
Right. Does he know what currency feels like? Like what's
definitely not. Like, definitely not. No.
What is it? Like it's yeah.
So my favorite scene in the whole movie was the restaurant massacre, because not only does the mean one take out so many drunk, annoying Santas, and they're really, most of them, especially the males, are just horrible people, but all the killings are just really fun and holiday related. I was just wondering, how long did that scene in particular take to film?
If you were watching any portion of the SantaCon massacre, that was all shot in one day.
Really?
Oh. Yes, we have 14 days to make the movie.
You had 14 days.
Technically, we had 15 days to make the movie, and we found out like 6 hours before the end of the 14th day that would be our last day, and that there would be no 15th day. So yeah, we didn't have the resources to do the restaurant for more than a day, and getting that many people, that was our biggest day. Getting that many people together, we're like, okay, let's shoot the car scene. So the car scene is, where the red van pulls up, is just all of our, all of the crew, the producer, the PA, like shaking the van to make it seem like it's driving while we're parked outside the restaurant. It was one day. And most of those stunt performers are some of my closest friends, because my fiance, who also plays Mayor McBean, is also an accomplished stunt woman. And so she, everyone that dies at the SantaCon sequence are people that I have like dinner with on Thanksgiving and stuff. So I know everyone really, really well. And so we know kind of their skills and who can do what. And so we kind of built the sequence based around, okay, who takes a hit really well? Who could take a fall? Who wants to get lassoed? You know what I mean?
And then we kind of,
who wants to wear was it an inflatable Christmas tree and get stabbed by a candy cane?
The inflatable Christmas tree. So we're small production, right? Amy, who's the producer, who also plays Mayor McBean, also did all of the wardrobe. And I said, look, I just want a sea of red, right? So I want just Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. She said, okay. Now we don't have the resource to have our costumes be new, right? So all of our costumes were like used or, Amazon warehouse, right? And so sometimes you just find little things. She said, okay, I found this costume, but you can't look at it before the fitting. So I'm going to order it and you just need to see it on. And I know it's not a Santa, but you just have to see it. And I said, okay, fine. So we have all my friends over, they're all putting on their Santa suits and the ladies are like, these are really revealing. I'm like, whoops, that was an accident. And then out of the bathroom comes my friend Brian in this giant inflatable tree. And I'm like, I need to kill this tree. This is fantastic.
Mhm.
And he's like, that's all I want is to be the tree. I'm like, Brian, nobody's going to see your face. And he's like, well, what if? And so the Dick Santa, those are their formal character names, who's the first one to die, the one with the reindeer.
The one who
waist-
like sexually assaults the waitress, right?
Not that one, the other one.
Oh God.
The other one who's got the reindeer around his waist and the funny little feet, the first one to die. Or I guess the second one to die. He's like, please let me be the Christmas tree. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll make it work. So
so it's the same. Oh, got it. Okay.
And do you have a favorite scene in the film?
Yeah, whether it was just a favorite scene to film or favorite scene, the final
to watch.
Yeah, to watch.
I think my favorite scene to film was definitely SantaCon, because that was just like, we killed 12 people. We got like a whole movie's body count in one day. You know, we killed 12 people in 12 hours is like kind of the joke. Because everyone came and they brought it. And, you know, after they died, they're wearing special effects makeup, helping us move pads and reset the room so we could do all the, you know, crazy things. And then my favorite scene to watch is probably the finale, you know, the end fight. Because you're kind of teasing it the whole time. You spend the whole movie waiting for this like big showdown. And they worked really hard on the fight. Some stuff had to get cut, unfortunately, for time. But they worked really hard, you know, practicing all the fight choreography and kind of getting everything dialed in so that we could incorporate all the weapons and kind of pay off everything that, you know, had been set up in the movie.
And I just to get your interpretation, speaking of the finale, because I kind of saw it as, were we supposed to see that the mean one was kind of like a product of, and I don't want to go too deep in this, but like, because, you know, they called him a monster, he almost like turned into a monster, as in he wasn't initially a monster. So it was because of that moment. Is that kind of how we're supposed to interpret it, that maybe at the core of his heart that grew, he really wasn't a monster until how he was treated by the town?
Well, I mean, without spoiling too much of the ending, I think you're on the right track. Because, you know, the idea of the film is kind of like this, well, what if instead of the story going left, it went right? How would it end up? You know? And I do believe that part of our story is that because of the different approach we take to that, you know, that one night where they interact, it sets him kind of down this other path. So, I mean, I think you got it pretty much. I mean, that's without trying to go.
I could have been totally wrong.
No. Yeah. I mean, without going too much into the.
Yeah.
the
no,
end
I
of the
see what
film,
you're saying. So another one thing we wanted to call, other than the obvious parodies in the film, like having it take place in Newville, you know, naming the main character Cindy, you know who, the Dr. Zeus, and calling the restaurant Horton's. Were there any other Easter eggs related to, you know, our favorite doctor's work that we missed in here, or things to look out for?
Oh goodness, there's so many
really?
there, because, you know, we just slide. The writer was also handling our art direction, so he would slide like little references into the set. So there's a red fish and a blue fish. There's a menu that's got the today's special is green eggs with a side of ham. There's you know, a whole thing about having a star on your belly. There's a cat who's wearing a hat. There's a stocking that's got a fox on it, like a fox in socks. So I mean, there's a bunch.
That's awesome.
of Easter
I love
eggs.
that.
Yeah.
I was watching the movie.
Yeah, I remember. Is the cat that had the hat, that wasn't the missing cat, or was it?
Yes.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny because that you don't.
I mean, I was visually seeing it, but I guess
I saw it and I thought it was funny that there was a missing cat. But I don't know. But maybe I did,
because the color of the hat is, it doesn't look this, because there's some stuff where like, this is too far. So so it is a cat in a hat, but it is not it's not a black cat. It's not a very familiar, you know. But yeah, there's
that had to be so much fun doing, like, especially like, I don't know if when they would say, like, would he run these things by you and be like, hey, what if we put a red fish and a blue fish? And you're like, yeah, that's hilarious. Or would he just slip these things in?
No. He would bring them up. And a couple of them he tried to get by me and I'm like, oh, no, it's too far. But yeah, I mean, like some of that stuff, like the red fish and the blue fish, like that was in the script. And, you know, and we're like, okay, where are we going to get these fish? And we're like, we'll just it'll be a silly visual effect. It'll be fine. Like, it's, you know, it's goofy. The whole thing is goofy. If you're not laughing, you're taking it too seriously, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And before the film was released in theaters, did you have any kind of cast and crew screening when Sorry.
when it was done.
Yeah.
What was the first time, like the very first time that you and the cast and crew saw it on screen? Because I didn't know. I know you guys were working so quickly. If you got like a screening or a premiere or something,
we did. We had we only screened the film twice before it was available to the general public. We did a couple of little test things. We showed parts of it, and just to see if it worked, or showed it for an audience. Didn't know what they were going to see. But the first public audience to see it was at Season Screamings in Pasadena.
I read that was like a huge screening, right? There was like 350 people there or something.
It was massive. Yeah, it was a huge audience because they didn't know what it was going to be. They just knew a lot of people had kind of figured it out.
I have been in that room before. It's huge.
And just for listeners who don't live in Southern California,
oh,
Season Screamings is a convention that takes place in
I want to say Long Beach,
California.
Pasadena is where that's
Pasadena.
Yeah, Pasadena.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big room. I've been in that room. It's huge.
It was massive, and the drag show had just finished, so they're like, it was all these people in there. There was people lined up outside. They were buzzing. It was crazy, and we're like, oh my god, no one's seen the movie. I hope they like it. I hope they get it's a joke. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I missed that.
You were saying, I know when we had this screening.
No, there's a chance I could have not been there, but no, it was in
I
California.
dazed out. I don't know where my mind went.
Was like David and Crystal and the rest of the cast there? Or?
David lives in New York, so he wasn't able to be there. Crystal was there. The writer was there. Amy, the producer, who also plays Mary McBean, was there. And we got to do a Q&A with the folks at Dead Meat afterwards. And it was super cool because, to be in a room of horror fans, like watching a comedy and kind of laughing and going along with it, and then having it end and them applaud and not, get their pitchforks and chase me out of the room was really gratifying. I always worry. And Amy asks me, she's like, what are you so nervous about? The movie's done. You've seen it a million times. I'm like, but what if, like, who brings rotten, tomatoes and fruit to a screening? What if this is the time? Like, there's a fruit vendor right outside. He's just handing out vegetables, and they're just waiting for like one joke to not land. They're gonna start throwing things at me. It's a weird fear. It hasn't happened yet, but doesn't that mean I'm overdue for an angry mom?
No. I mean, but also it's kind of
time you make something. And there's out into the world.
There's always going to be lovers, going to be haters. There's going to be, and sometimes I feel like people nowadays, especially on social media, love to find something to hate about something. But those people probably have miserable existence.
We also live in an age where everyone has a platform. Everyone can say whatever they feel at any given time.
Yeah, and also, but what I think again, this is like we said throughout many times, like it's such a huge accomplishment, not only just to make a film, because just I know how difficult that is, but to, have it. And actually, I was going to ask you, how did you manage to get it into theaters? As an indie filmmaker, was there like a process, or what went into doing that?
Well, I mean, we very thankful that people love talking about our movie, right? Whether they like it or hate it or love the idea or think we're ruining their childhood, people love talking about the film, which is super great. Because lots of people are making money off of clicking on links and stuff. So they want to keep posting about it, which is cool. And that's fine. But after the image, the first few images kind of came out, there was this buzz about the film. And then we dropped the trailer and people went nuts. It was like the most watched indie trailer, in 24 hours of anything that came out this year, not just horror, but like any independent film, which was crazy and wonderful. And we had originally had like kind of the streaming plan to kind of independently get it out to the world. And, who sees it. And great, we're a little tiny film. And then we spoke with this distributor that was like, hey, Terrifier did really well in theaters. And, if the movie's, we're going to bring it to an audience, what if we went theatrical with it? There's this hole in the release schedule. Nothing new is coming out the week before Avatar because everyone's scared Avatar is going to blow them out of the water. So like you could do something that Thursday or that Friday and, let's like, because it plays really well in a room, right? You got a bunch of people in there laughing and yucking it up. They're like, this is a funny experience. Would you like to try that? And I said, yeah, why not? How many theaters could it be? One night, let's just go for it. It's always been a dream of mine to have a movie in theaters. And then they're like, Regal loves the film. They're really strongly behind it. Our trailer played with Violent Night and the reaction to the trailer was so strong. They were like, what if we did more theaters? I'm like, how many theaters? and now we're in over 150 theaters all around the country. It's crazy.
That has got to be the best Christmas gift ever.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I know. Wow. No, that is really awesome. And it's so, and I feel like it's such a, it means so much for other indie filmmakers out there as like having a goal that like, hey, guess what you work on, it could get into theaters, it could have this sort of distribution, it could, you know, be seen in the places you never thought it would be seen. So like, what a great, like, just, I feel like very inspiring.
Yeah,
I guess. Do you think there's, I mean, without even though we usually spoil everything on this podcast because pretty much this is a pretty new film, do you think there's room for a sequel, and would you want to work on a sequel to this, or have you kind of like, hey, I'm gonna move on from this?
Well, you know, you make a small film very, very quickly, and there's always things you wish you could do differently. Everyone worked so hard to make this movie, and I'm really, really proud of what we were able to do so fast, and my God, so cheaply. We're still exploring the possibility of a sequel. I know that there's some questions about how we would do it and, you know, what it would be about. So I currently have no plans for a sequel, but if I did have plans for a sequel, there'd be like a 10-page outline and a lot of sketches of new monster ideas and some new kills and the ski resort and, you know, like Die Hard and, you know, a bunch of the old characters coming back and bigger and meaner and greener, but there isn't, and I don't have this plan, and it doesn't exist, and that's my story.
So it sounds like you haven't given this any thought at all.
Not even a little. Why would I think about that?
I mean, you like parody, so it was like, where did your love for parody come from? Were you a big SNL fan or anything?
Yes, I love Saturday Night Live. I mean, I love just anytime you can take something. I mean, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator voice is more ubiquitous than actual quotes from Terminator. Like, people love making fun of Terminator, one of my favorite films, more than I think they even love Terminator, right? Arnold does not sound like that. But like Mad TV has created this fake Arnold persona that like everybody loves to do. And, you know, it's a great way to, especially now that action comedies are so popular, it's a great way to say, okay, well, let's pick up somebody else's toys and play with them, right? Filmmakers, we're all just kids at heart. We play pretend for a living, which is a dream come true. And that's why I love doing parodies, because I like to make people laugh. And I love being able to take something you've heard of and kind of turn it on its head and put my own spin on it.
No, that's awesome. And then you already told us about the new project, but are there any other new projects you'd like to talk about that you're working on right now, or that you'd like to tell our listeners about?
I have another parody that I'm working on. Not a sequel to the Mean One, because remember, that doesn't exist and it'll never happen.
Doesn't exist. No sketches, no ideas.
No plans.
No plans. No Die Hard type plot.
No dog puppet with horns. It's none of that. So don't.
No already signed David Howard Thornton. None of that.
Nothing. So no.
Got it.
No. Okay, we're good. Everybody
got it. Got
it.
it.
We're fine. All right. But I do have another parody. It's based on something that everybody has seen, everybody has heard of, never done in this way for sure. It's totally going to be a collaboration with the Terrifier guys. Shout out to Fuzz on the Lens, Mike, Jason, Steve. You got no choice. You're in on this one. And I'm going to be announcing it soon once I'm sure that this is definitely the next thing I want to do, because, you know, making a movie is like getting a roommate, you know, or getting into a relationship. You know, I'm going to be sitting with this thing for a year and a half, 2 years. So I have to be really, really sure, you know, there's something here. But I have the book and I've been like drawing in the margin. And that's my favorite, like, is just being able to, the little doodles in my script is like, that's where all the magic really happens. And you'll just have to stay tuned for that. We
can't wait for your horror parody of Goodnight Moon. We are looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. I was going to do, it's either going to be that or, you know, just really something really sweet that we can just ruin.
I'm trying to think like what other sweet, like, childhood things could you just really fuck up?
The Giving Tree is returned and he's going to take it all back. I mean, we're going to
have Where the Sidewalk Ends. Remember that one? But like, people drop into hell. I think there's the way to go.
I don't read books.
Where the Sidewalk Ends.
It's too long.
Anyway, no, that's good. Well, first off, we just have one final question for you, Stephen, and thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun for us, and just like just being able to talk to you about this movie.
Yes, and your positive attitude is contagious.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I had a dark childhood, so I've coped with humor.
Oh, really? Oh, I've never.
No, I'm just kidding. Mom, if you're listening, I love you so much. Fine. Everything's fine. I'm just kidding.
We asked this to every guest that we have on the podcast, and it kind of puts them on the spot a little, unlike our other questions that didn't put you on the spot. No.
Right. Where you talk in depth about the ending of the film before it's done being out. Yeah, that's
great. Exactly. Where I'm forcing you to give us our your acapella group name. Nothing on the spot. So what is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on The Mean One that you've never told any other interviewer, podcaster, publication, or just that you've never said in an interview or any talking about this film? Just one thing you can tell us about your experience working on it that you've never told anyone else.
Ooh, that I've never told anyone else.
And it doesn't have to be some big juicy gossip. It can be a small behind the scenes thing, or just maybe just as long as you've
Something never told. Something I haven't told anybody. Here, I guess here's a fun thing. We irreparably damaged the restaurant. David came in to do his Mean One thing with his fingers. It's in the trailer and stuff, where his hands comes up, and so that wooden piece right there, so broken. And it was not, I think it was broken when we got there. And that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. But he definitely did the first take and came up and grabbed it and pulled himself up, and boop, he ripped the whole thing off. And he's
wow.
He played through it. So it's a funny outtake. I can't release it because, then the location will come after me to replace it. And so we have we use, one of the funny things that you do on a movie, we're super respectful, but accidents happen. And so, when you have someone who's good at art direction or whatever, they're crafty. And so we're like, hey, so we wrap in 6 hours. I need you to fix this railing so that when we leave, they don't ask us to replace it. She's like, okay, no problem. And so they get to work. We shoot the rest of the day. We're all done. We're going to leave. And I come back and the railing looks immaculate. It looks perfect. I'm like, how did you pull this off? This is great. And I went to touch it, and she goes, do not touch it. And I said, what do you mean don't touch it? And she's like, looks great, right? I said, yeah. She goes, that's all that matters. And so,
that's funny.
So when we wrap, we're going to lock up, and site reps looking at everything. And she's like, oh, it looks good in here. You guys really cleaned it up well. And we're like,
You're like, just never touch the railing.
Don't touch the railing. She's like, yeah, we got another crew coming in tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, that's it for us. And that's the best.
And then if it does break, it was the other crew's fault or whoever.
I'm not entirely sure someone didn't do this to us, right?
Exactly.
Because they had a real hard time putting it back together. I'm like, I bet you this damn thing was broken. And they had their art people put it back together, and so that we would break it, quote unquote. And then we'd be on the hook for it. I'm like, but we just fixed it and leave it to the next crew. So whoever's
sneaky
whoever's
behind
out
the scenes.
There you go. That's it.
That's awesome. Well, again, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're really excited. We wish you nothing but the best with The Mean One and your future projects.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we will be in touch when the episode is going to come out. Definitely going to come out soon because we want to keep up with the holidays. And again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, happy holidays.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you guys as well.
Okay, take care. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Matt Emmer and myself, Tim Murdoch. It's co-produced by Jacob Randall.
We release episodes every Monday, and each episode is either a review of new horror films or an interview with a horror star or insider. So there's something for everyone.
You can listen to the podcast directly from our website, www.happyhorrortime.com, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you stream.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Happy Horror Time. We always post the movies we're going to review a few days in advance, so if you want, you can watch them before hearing our spoiler-filled reviews.
Mm-hmm. If you'd like to contact us directly, send an email to happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
And to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our monthly bonus episodes, our newsletter, autographed stickers, and get to vote in polls to pick the movies we're going to review. Best of all, if we get to 50 patrons, we're going to start releasing 2 bonus episodes per month versus 1. So tell a friend.
Yeah. I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.